Hello, today we're discussing section 9-7, equations of circles. Let's get started. Okay, it's 9-7, equations of circles. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the fact of a circle, that a circle is the locus of points in a plane equidistant from a given point. Creates an equation for any circle. So our key concept is right here. The standard form of the equation of a circle with center at h, comma k. Now here's a little diagram over here. You can see the center of this circle would indicate h, k, okay, and radius, that's r. So the standard form of the equation is the following: x minus the h, that quantity squared, plus y minus the k, and that quantity squared, and that is equal to r squared. This is called the standard form of the equation of a circle. It is also called the center radius form. So this is what we're focusing on today in this lesson, 9-7, equal equations of circles. So let's go through this. It might be a little long lesson today, but as we've done in the past, we'll encompass this over a couple days. Let's start with this example here. Suppose the center is at 3, 2, and the radius is 4. Okay, so if the center is at 3, 2, you want to think of that center as h, comma, k. Okay, so, and the radius is 4. The radius is the distance from the center. So the center in this case, the center for this one is 3, comma, 2. And it says here that the radius is 4. Okay, so the second part is this. Write the equation of the circle. The equation of the above circle. So what the equation is, x minus the h, x minus the h. We're going to take that quantity and square it. Then we're going to add that to y minus the k, and we're going to square that. And that's all going to equal r squared. Okay, so you got to remember now, the h is 3 and the k is 2. The h is 3 and the k is 2. So our equation of the above circle would be x minus the h, which is 3, plus y minus the 2. And that's squared. And that is equal to the r squared, the radius. The radius in this case is 4, and the radius 4 squared would be 16. Example 1, write the equation of each circle. Center at 0, 0. Diameter is 16. Okay, so we have the standard form of the equation already here. So if the center is h, comma, k, so h in this case is 0 and the diameter is 16. So if the diameter is 16, that tells you that the radius is equal to 8. Okay, so your standard form of the equation of the circle would be as follows: x minus the h, which is 0, excuse me, squared, plus y minus the k, which is 0, and that is equal to r squared. R squared would be 8 squared. Okay. So your answer there is x squared plus y squared is equal to 64. 64. Letter B, center at -2, 3. The radius is square root of 8. Okay, so if the center is h is -2, k is positive 3. So in this case, we have x minus a -2 puts us at x plus 2. We're going to square that. And then we're going to add y minus 3, and that's going to be squared. And then we take the square root of 8 and we square it. So the square root of 8 squared is equal to 8. So your answer is x plus 2 quantity squared plus y minus 3 quantity squared is equal to 8. Moving down to letter C, the center is at 3, -4, and it passes through -1, -4. The center is at 3, -4, and passes through -1, -4. Okay, so let's take a look at our little grid here. Its center is at 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the center. And it says there that the circle passes through -1, positive, -1, -4 down here. So we are given that the center, which would be the center, which is right here, the HK, the H is 3, the K is -4. And we need to know what the radius is. So this distance goes from this point to this point. The radius is equal to 4 units. Okay? It says it passes through -1, -4, and it's at the center, 3, -4. So there's your radius. Okay, so then your equation is x minus the h. In this case, it's 3. Then you're going to square that. Then you're going to add it to y minus the k, which is -4. So if you're subtracting a negative, you're actually going to add a positive 4. And that's squared. And that's equal to the radius, which we found to be 4 squared, or 16. And that's the standard form of a circle, center at 3, -4, passing through -1, -4. There's 2 more on this page. Let's go to D now. Center at 0, 3. So put the center in at 0, +3, and it passes through 2, 0. So it passes through here. So that's the radius. So we got to find the radius of the circle by using the distance formula. Some of you may notice the Pythagorean theorem, which basically is the distance formula. So I'll go ahead. The distance between this point 0, 3, 0, 3, and this point here, which is 2, 0, will be the following. The square root of y of 2, which is 0, y of 2, minus y of 1. I think they've got this kind of transposed, so I'll just do it this way. 0 minus, I should say 3 minus 0 squared plus 0 minus 2. And that's squared. So this becomes 4. 3 minus 0 is 9. Okay? So the square root of 9 plus 4, or in other words, the square root of 13. So by the use of the distance formula, the radius is the square root of 13. Okay? So now you have your radius, you have your center, which is your h, 0, and your k, 3, and you're good to go with your equation. Okay, so your equation would be the following. X minus the h, which is 0, and that's squared, plus y minus the k, which is 3, squared, and that is equal to the square root of 13 squared, which is a positive 13. So your answer is x squared plus the quantity y minus 3 squared, which is equal to 13. So keep on the lookout for that type of question coming up, where you're giving the center and you're giving a point, given a point that it passes through, and you need to find the distance between the two using the distance formula. And the last one on this page is identifying the center, the radius, and the equation of the following circle. Okay, the center is fairly easy to see. 3, positive 2. The radius is fairly easy to see too. The radius is 2 units. So if you have the center of the circle, which is the h, 3, and the k, 2, your equation of your circle will be the following. X minus 3, the h, squared, plus y minus the 2, quantity squared. And that is equal to the radius squared, which is 2 squared, or 4. And that's page 1. Page 2 is basically notes. The equation of the circle, just basically notes saying what the equation of the circle is, h and k. And now we're going to move on to example 2. Okay, so this is continuation of the previous material. So just different types of questions, all right? So for each circle with the given equation, state the coordinates of the center and the measure of the radius, then graph the equation. Okay, so you're given this here equation, and you want to think to yourself, if my standard x minus h squared plus y minus the k squared is equal to the r squared, okay? So that's our standard form. And if that's the case, we can see what our center is. The center is, if this is x squared, this is x minus a 0. H has to be 0. And k has to be 0, because if this is y squared, y minus k, I should put that k squared on the other side. K squared out there. Okay, so this k is 0. All right, so we've got ourselves the center at 0, 0. Okay. Now, this 16. This 16 is r squared, so that tells me that the radius is 4. 4. So that's what these types of questions are. You are given the standard equation of the circle, and you are defined the center and the radius. So they've got this little grid here you can, or coordinate plane. you could draw in the circle 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the circle kind of goes like this. One, 2, 3, 4 is the radius. And so forth. Okay. All right, letter B, x minus 1 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 9. Okay, so again, I'm just going to write down the standard form on this one again. X minus h quantity squared plus y minus k, and that's quantity squared, and that's equal to r squared. Okay, so you can kind of see if it's 9, the radius will be 3. And the h in this case is 1. And the k is 4. Okay, so you got the center of the circle and the radius 3. Let's draw it. Okay, let's graph it. So the center is 1, 4. 1, positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the radius is out here at 3. So count over 3, 2, 3. There's 1 point. Up 3, 1, 2, 3. Another point. Over 3, 1, 2, 3. And then the bottom here, 1, 2, 3. So if your center is at 1, positive 4, and these other points would be the outsides of the circle, and it would go up and so forth. And that is letter B. Okay, so these are kind of fun problems, kind of reverse engineering, so to speak. X plus 2 squared plus y squared is equal to 16. So this h here, now you think of this, h, x minus the h. Okay, and that's quantity is squared. Okay, so if this is a positive 2, this h has to be a negative 2. Okay, so you want to think of it this way. If you're going to subtract a negative, that's going to get you that positive 2. Okay, so when you do that, you end up with negative 2 as your x coordinate of the center. And it's easy to see the k because that's y squared, so that's at 0. So let's plot that down. Negative 2, 0. All right. And now you see this 16. If it's 16, what number squared is 16? The radius is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so you had negative 2, 0. And our radius is 4, so I'll graph this circle quickly for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a point there. Then count up 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a point there. Then we'll go over 4 points. 2, 3, 4. And we'll go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So our circle is the following. X plus 2 quantity squared plus y squared is equal to 16 is the following on C. Okay, last one on this page is D. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to get the hang of this here. And this one, you can see the H pretty easy. The H is 0, okay, because it's x squared. So x minus h quantity squared. So the x minus 0 is x squared. So this gets you the 0. Now, in this case, you have y minus 1, so the k is 1. Then the radius is 3 squared, or 9 there, or 3 3 squared is 9. Okay, so let's graph the circle. 0, positive 1. There's the center. The radius is 3. 1, 2, 3. Up 3. Over 3. 2, 3. Or down 3. Okay, so then we're going to graph that by putting a circle in a straight line, Ken. Let's go ahead. Here we go. Circle up, round, over, and to the beginning. So be on the lookout for those types of questions where you're actually graphing the circle and you're determining the center and radius given the equation. Okay, moving along now to page 4. And some of this is going to be a review on completing the square today. So just bear with me on this. Hopefully you remember how to do that. If not, these examples will refresh your memory, okay? So when you graph circles, you may need to rewrite the equations in standard form from first and sometimes use completing the square. Okay, so we're going to be given the equation of the circle, and you're going to be asked to determine what the center is and the radius is, and you're going to be asked to graph it. This one's pretty simple. X plus y squared minus 4 equals 0. So if I push the 4 over to the other side, I have x squared plus y squared is equal to 4. Well, that tells me that the radius is 2, okay? Because 2 squared is 4. It also tells me that the center is at 0, 0. So you have a center at 0, 0. You have the radius of 2. And with that in mind, your graph looks like this of your circle. For example 3, okay? So they're going to ask you to rewrite it. We kind of did it above there. The rewriting was x squared plus the y squared is equal to 4. Okay, so that was an easy one to get started. Next two are not that easy, but you can do it. Let's do the next one. All right, x squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 6y plus 9 equals 0. All right, so what we're going to first do is we're going to take this long equation and we're going to go down and do some work to it. We're going to rewrite it. And we're going to use completing the square today, okay? So what we want to first do is you look at what we've got here, and we're going to kind of group together where the x's are and where the y's are. So we'll rewrite this as the following. X squared plus 6x plus y squared plus or minus minus 6y. Now I'm going to take this plus 9 and I'm going to subtract it from the left and the right, and I'll push it over there as a minus 9. Okay, so that's our first step. All right, now what you're going to notice when we complete the square, we've got ourselves the x group over here, and you've got yourself the y group, okay? So what we first do, we're going to focus, so he's got this group here first. So when you complete the square, you focus on that middle term, on a trinomial, this 6, and half it, okay, which is 3, and then you square it, which is 9. Okay, so to complete the square, we're going to take x squared plus 6x. Okay, and when we're completing the square, we half that 6 to get 3, and we're going to end up adding the 3 squared. Okay, now I'm not going to change it to 9 because we're actually completing the square, and we're going to do some factoring down below here. All right, so the other part here, the y squared minus 6y, we do the same thing. When you're completing the square, you take your y squared minus the 6y. Now you're going to half the minus 6 and get a negative 3, and we're going to add the negative 3 squared. Now, this is an equation, so we just can't willy-nilly do whatever we want to do unless we do it to this side. So if we already add this positive 3 squared, we're going to add the negative 3 squared, both the 3 squared and the negative 3 squared. So we're going to do a negative 9. We're going to add the 3 squared to balance out the equation. And we're going to also add the negative 3 quantity squared to balance that out. Okay? All right, so now we've got a grouping here with x's and a grouping here. And by completing the square, this factored mode would be x plus 3 squared plus y minus 3, and that is a quantity squared. Okay, so again, this minus 3 comes down and this positive 3 comes down. So these are special trinomials factored out. X squared plus 6x plus 3 squared is x plus 3 squared. You want to think of your FOIL, or you think of your special products. And that's going to equal negative 9 plus 3 squared is 9. So this cancels out. Okay. And you end up with negative 3 squared, which is a positive 9. So by completing the square, we end up with something that we can identify the center and the radius of the circle. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for our h and our k. The center, hk, in this case would be a negative 3, and the k would be 3, and the radius is a positive 3. So the center is negative 3, comma 3, and the radius is 3. Okay, so you got the 3 by the 9, which is 3 times 3, and the hk is negative 3. Okay, so if that didn't jar your memory, hopefully this next example will. Completing the square, you want to kind of think to yourself, how do I half that 6, square it, add that to that side, do the same on the right, and you're good to go. All right, here's another one. The equation of a circle is x squared plus y squared minus 8x plus 2y is equal to negative 8. State the coordinates of the center and the measure of the radius, then graph the equation. Okay? Okay, so let's rewrite this. Let's kind of group together the x's, x squared minus 8x. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of leave myself a little space here, okay? Because then I'm going to add the y squared plus 2y. Then I'm going to leave myself another little space, okay? past that, and that's equal to -8. Okay. Now, the reason why I left myself some space there is because we're going to use completing the square here. And this first one, we're going to fill in the blank. -8, we're going to half that. So that's a -4. Okay? Half of -4 is 4. So we're going to, or +4 squared is what we're adding. Okay? Same program here. We're going to take the 2 and we're going to add, we're going to cut it in half, 1. Then we're going to add the 1 squared. Okay, and you know, if you're looking at this thinking, okay, why didn't you go -4? Why didn't you go, you know, you got +1, so that's good. Why'd you go negative? Because you're squaring it anyway. Okay, you're going to square it anyway. All right, so remember now, if we add the +4, or 16, okay, we're going to take the 4 and we're going to square it to this side. And we're going to take the 1 and we're going to square it to that side. Or same on the right. Okay, so completing the square. Let's go down now and work with this first grouping here. X squared minus 8x plus 4 is x minus 4 quantity squared. Now, if you don't remember those special products with polynomials, you can always think of back to FOIL. FOIL is the go-to if you don't remember the special products. In this case is y plus 1 quantity squared. Now, let's bunch this together. -8 plus 16 is a +8, and then +1 is a +9. All right, now as it's coming together, the completing the square is over. It is fairly straightforward from here on out. We're looking for the h. We're looking for the k. Okay, so the h in this case is going to be 4, and the k is going to be -1. Because you're adding +1, and since it's a +1, you want to subtract a -1. Makes it a positive. And this 9, the radius is 3. So the radius is 3, and the center is 4, -1. So by completing the square, you can determine the center and the radius quite easily of fairly difficult looking equations. The radius is 3. Okay, so when you're graphing it again, the 4, -1, 4, -1, and then let's apply the radius of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So we're going to swoop on up. And there is your circle. Center for -1 and a radius of 3. Okay, we're almost done today. I know we went a little bit over, but let's wrap out these last 2 examples, and we will put the 9-7 into the books here, okay? Last 2 examples. The next example is I'm going to use the midpoint, and it's going to use the distance formula. So I've got that laid out already here. It says write an equation of a circle with a diameter. Okay, so you might kind of guess why I'm using the midpoint here, because I have the diameter having endpoints at 0, +5, and I'll put that in, and 4, -5. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at these 2 points, that's the diameter. So I'm not going to, run this through here yet. but this is the midpoint formula. So we're going to take the x's, add them together, and divide by 2, which is 0 plus 4, divided by 2, and that's 2. So we're trying to find the midpoint of these 2 points. Okay. Y1 plus y2 is 5 plus negative 5, which is 0 over 2, which is 0. Let's walk through that again. Y1 is 5 plus a negative 5, and that's 0, over 2, which is 0. So your midpoint on the diameter is 2, 0. 2, 0. You can kind of see where I was heading here. Okay, so that's the midpoint. So we were given the diameter, using the midpoint formula, we found that that point at 2, 0, we have ourselves the center. So I'll put that down, 2, 0. Okay, so we have the center of the circle, and we have couple ends. Both are equidistant. So that's the next thing. We need to find the distance between the center of the circle at 2, 0, and we're going to use this 0, 5. Okay, so by the use of the distance formula. And let's go ahead. I'm going to flip this around this time, because that's how your x of 2 minus x of 1, not sure why it was that way, plus y of 2 minus y of 1. Okay. That's squared. I just flipped them around. Okay, so we're going to take the x. We're going to go 0 minus 2. Okay. So x of 2 minus x of 1, 0 minus 2. I'll go 0 minus 2 here. 0 minus 2, we're going to square that. And then we're going to take 5, the y, minus the 0, then we're going to square that. Okay, so when you're doing your combination there, 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. Then we're going to square that. Plus 5 squared. So that's 25 plus 4, or the square root of 29 is the distance. Square root of 29. So the radius, we found you were given the diameter, we found the midpoint at 2, 0, and now we found the radius by using this distance formula, square root of 29. Okay. Now, what's the equation? Okay. The equation would be the following: x minus 2, and that's squared, plus y minus 0, and that's y, and that's squared. And then we're going to take the radius and square it, which is going to give you 29. Okay? And that's example 5. So we use the midpoint. You were given the diameter. We use the midpoint to find the radius. And with the radius and one of the points in the diameter, we could use the distance formula to find the radius, the distance of the radius. And then we're good to go for the equation. Last one on lesson 9.7, equations of circles. It asks us to do this. Write an equation of a circle with a diameter of 20 and a center translated 8 units left and 5 units down from the origin. Okay, so let's look at this first. The origin is right here at 0, 0. And it says the center is translated 8 units to the left, all the way over. And then we're going to go 5 units down. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's put the center in right there. The center is at -8, -5. -8, -5. Okay, now it says there, write an equation of a circle with the diameter of 20. So if the diameter is 20, the radius is going to be half of the diameter, or 10. Okay, so take a look at what they're telling you and just kind of take your time on, flipping through the information. So they just tell you that, hey, the diameter is 20. It tells me the radius is 10. So the equation would be as following. All right. X minus the h, which would be x plus 8. And we're going to square that. Plus y minus the k would be plus 5. And that's squared. And that's equal to the radius squared, which is 100. So x plus 8 quantity squared plus y plus 5 quantity squared is your answer. The center ended up being -8, -5. The radius ended up being 10, half of the diameter, and the equation is right here. Okay, everyone. That is section 9.7, equations of circles. And we covered everything in one video lesson. So hopefully this was helpful to you. And look forward to seeing you soon. And hopefully, if there's any questions, make sure that you try to get a hold of me. And have a great day. Okay, everyone? Take care now. Bye-bye.